It's on computer. So I believe we are recording right now. So welcome to Pacwest Bigfoot. This is David. And before I introduce our guest today, what I wanted to say real quick is thank you guys so very much for all your help and all your patience with Pacwest Bigfoot as I'm kind of growing here. I have moved the blog and everything over to the Pacwest Facebook page. You go there, you can click on where it says notes right underneath my old ugly image there of my old butt face. And guess what? You click on notes, you're going to find all the content there, all the blog posts and everything else. So we'll be over there. Pacwest Bigfoot for now will just be a place where you guys can go. You can go if you haven't already. You can sign up for the free monthly giveaway where I give away something cool. And by the way, Derek and your wife, I just started feeling better. I had a really bad cold for a few days, plus the sites were down. I was trying to work on that, so I didn't get this in the mail yet. But you guys, Derek and his wife, you guys got it. I'm going to send this out here in the next 24 hours. So there you are. Any other news? Not really. Other than that, it was a hectic weekend. I was sick. My wife is sick. If you hear anything in the background, we homeschool. I work at home. So there we are. Anyways, this week, what I wanted to do is I had a gentleman named Chris contact me, and we just hit it off really well. And we started kind of talking about Bigfoot. We both had our kind of experiences, but his experience was just so awesome. So what I wanted to do was get his encounter story out here to you guys. And it was just so interesting. I was like, that is just cool, especially when I have a really awesome little secondhand report that I got from some people around the same area in Orick, California. So what I want to do right now is introduce Chris, and his encounter story happened, I believe, up around the Northern California. Am I correct around Orick there, Chris?
That would be correct, yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to kick back and I'm going to be really quiet, man. And I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us. I know that you've had more than one experience that kind of led up to all of this. So if you want to we're all going to be real quiet and we're just going to listen to you. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what prompted me to actually contact you, I'm really not, I'm kind of a novice when it comes to the subject and kind of, the press, side of the things and everything that's out there with TV shows and everything else like that. I wouldn't call myself a fan or anything such, but I did have an experience, and what actually prompted me to contact you was I was alerted to the recent story of the incidents up and around Orick. Mm-hmm. So trying to Google the story, one night reading, I found and saw that there had been a lot of instances of sightings and activity in Orick over the years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wanted to contact you and just kind of relate my experience in the area. So kind of beginning back in the late 70s, I was originally from the LA area. Well, my mother and my father had gotten a divorce when I was young, and my mother kind of just wanted to get out of the LA area and ended up moving up to Northern California, and we moved up to a small town up there called McKinleyville initially. Mm-hmm. During the course of us living there, my mother started to date a fellow, and subsequently they ended up getting married, and he was a Humboldt County Sheriff's deputy. So initially, after the marriage, we ended up living in Eureka, where he was doing his duty with the Sheriff's Department there. And then a little bit later on, I would say around 82, he was assigned as the Sheriff's deputy up in the York area, up in the northern part of Humboldt County. Mm-hmm. So we moved up to Orick and set up residence there and just kind of living normal lives and, out in the country. It was kind of all new. And so the first initial thing that I look back in hindsight after I'll get to, what culminates in the story is that we used to have to go and do all our shopping for anything substantial in Eureka. So it's about a 40-mile trek south. And so one afternoon we set off to Eureka and did some grocery shopping and whatnot, and then come back up to Orick and out to our residence there, which is pretty rural and just along the coastline on the north side of the river there in Orick. When we returned home, it had already gotten dark, and we come to the residence, and we're coming into the residence and moving groceries into the house, and we had a chicken coop that was at the rear south side of the house. Mm-hmm. And there was a commotion back there, and you could hear the birds, the chickens and ducks that we had in a stir, and didn't really know what was going on. So I went to the back of the house to see what was going on, and very low light, and what I perceived as a dark mass in the chicken coop, outside of the actual chicken shed that the chickens were housed in, but outside in the coop was a large dark mass, and it was upright. So at this time,
on like two legs.
Young, yes, it was. What I perceived at the time, and being so young and not having a lot of exposure to the stories of Bigfoot and stuff at this time, it's what I perceived to be a bear.
Okay.
Trying to get into the chicken house there, so I ran back around the house and told my mother about it, and she just had us get into the house. And as we got all the lights in the house on, and the light from the window could shed light into the chicken coop area, this animal was gone at that point. So at that time, like I say, I just perceived it to be a bear trying to get into the chicken coop, and didn't really think anything of it past then. So so as days and weeks go on and whatnot, our landlord that was on the property, he was an older gentleman at this point. Him and his wife lived there, and we were the only two parties on this property that probably encompassed a couple of 100 acres. There's a lot of open fields and farm type activity going on there. So so as a young kid, I would stray over to his house and talk to him while I'd be working on a tractor or whatnot. And one day, as he had a little shop there next to his house, I would just kind of go in and see what he may be working on. And being an inquisitive young kid, I mentioned that there was a bear in the chicken coop. And during the course of this conversation, he didn't really expound or try to indicate what that creature may have been, but he did at that time actually show me some castings of footprint.
Do you mind if I ask you something? I mean, so he'd been there for like years or decades living around there?
Yeah, I would assume decades. I believe he was the property owner at that time. Like I say, he was probably easily late 60s into his 70s at this point.
And he collected these tracks himself, just around the around the property, or just around Orick in general?
From the property.
Okay.
And from what I remember, he said that he had taken these footprints from a small creek that actually ran down behind the property, not far from the actual chicken coop that I had seen this creature in. So
go ahead.
So, me being so young and everything, I didn't put two and two together, as he didn't, indicate that that's what he suspected it was, or, expound on anything or tell me about Bigfoot in general. So at this point, I was pretty unknowledgeable about the whole deal. And, that was just kind of neat stuff to look at as a kid, and didn't really put two and two together. So later on, as we're living at this residence, and it would basically be between the years of 82 and 85. So I was, between 7 and 10 during this time. So yeah, during the course of our residence there, and the course of my mother's marriage to this fella, the marriage was kind of rocky, and subsequently ended in a divorce later on. But there was an incident where there had been an argument, and my mother had been upset, and there was a small trail that led behind the house, and it would probably go, boy, I would say maybe a quarter mile to the beach, and it would end up on a bluff over the beach. And it was a nice place for us to go for walks and get out to the beach. And so she was upset one evening after this argument, and she decided to take me with her for a walk out to the beach to kind of settle down, and get some fresh air. And so we walk along this trail, and this is the west side of the residence. And it's probably later in the evening. We might have about 45 minutes of sun left before the sunset, and it would have been sometime in the summer because the weather was good. So we proceed to walk down this trail and take this walk, and we have walked this trail many times, and no incidents or anything of the such. But there was a small depression or ravine that would run along the south side of this trail, and it would be to our left as we're moving west towards the beach. So we end up at the end of this trail where there would be a switchback kind of along the ledge leaning down to the beach, a really steep ledge there. So we actually didn't descend to the beach this day. We just kind of stayed above in this little area where we could watch the sunset. And so we may have been there maybe 10, 15 minutes. And we turned around to head back the trail. And as I turned around, half obscured by brush, and I would say maybe 35, 40 yards from me, I got about a 3-second glimpse of what I perceived to be the back right side of this animal's head and its right shoulder and the arm extending down. So at this point, it was, I could remember it vividly. It was a sense of kind of fear and shock, not knowing what you're looking at, but you're seeing something. So I turned to my right and to my rear to address my mother and see if she's seen what I'm seeing. And as I look back, she seems in shock and not knowing what she had seen. And I asked her, I said, "Did you see that?" And she says, "Yes." So at this point, we're both
kind of just looking at one at that point in time, right?
Yeah, this is correct. And so at this point, we kind of take a beeline because what I had seen was on the trail that we had just been on. So it's back towards the residence that I'm seeing this creature. So we actually beeline and circumvent the trail and end up going through some brush and up and over, which leads to a high field that we could go down and end up back at the residence. So we get back to the residence, and we're all kind of, my mother and I are kind of astonished and not what's going on and fearful. And we get back to the house and kind of relate the story. And then when we're both talking about it, that's when I come to realize that she had seen a separate animal at the same time. She had not seen the one that I had seen. So she had actually seen one in the depression that was now off to the right-hand side as we're heading east back to the residence. So there's two creatures there, and both of us talking. The thing that's really peculiar about the sighting is that most Bigfoot sightings that you see reported and whatnot, the creatures are dark brown in most cases, but these were actually a white color or a light tan blondish color.
I think we were talking about that one day, kind of like a creamy white with like a goldish brown kind of tinge to it.
Yes, it would be like the best.
Dirty yellow polar bear.
Exactly, like a if you've seen a polar bear at the zoo that's kind of been rolling around and they're kind of dingy yellowish.
Yeah.
That's what it appeared to be like to me.
Okay.
They were definitely a light color, which was very odd, but you could definitely make out the
Now
back of the
you
head,
saw
the shoulder, and the
yours,
arm.
and did she see it at the same time, or did she see it when she was just looking somewhere else and saw one?
No, we were both heading back, so that would be east towards the residence, but she was looking down in this little gulch or ravine, depression, what you could call it, and saw the one that she had seen, but she had not seen the one on the trail, which I had seen. But yes, it was both at the exact same time.
Wow.
And like I say, it's just west of this little creek that these castings that the landlord had taken.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if over the years, I've tried to relate this story to people, and they're obviously skeptical, and I would be too. But this is an animal that I'd seen with my own eyes, and it was a real experience, and I believe these animals exist, obviously, because nothing has to convince me except for what I had seen with my own eyes. So, and then again, relating the story and getting in touch with you, it was more interesting to me that over the years that there's been a lot of encounters and obviously a lot of activity in the Orick area. So,
yeah, there actually has been. I don't mean to interrupt you on this point, but I did want to state this to some people out there. Have asked me about that. I've actually had, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 individuals come forward to me about kind of, experiences or, finding tracks or howls or screams in the night or whatever from around that area just over the last, 10 years. And so, as far as I'm concerned, that whole Orick area is, to me, seems like a pretty active area. And I know that you were, probably around 10 years old, which was probably about one of my younger brother's ages around that time. Can you remember some of the description of it other than hair? I mean, was it, tall, broad, face, anything?
Well, it was definitely tall. So it would be, from my sighting, it would be its left rear was completely obscured by brush foliage there in the trees. So what I could see protruding from the trees was, like I say, it would be the right side of the rear of the head, and it was a distinct head and shoulder and the back of the arm extending down. I did not see any hands or any muscle tone or a face. So I would think that I was looking at the rear of the animal. And I can only speculate, maybe they were watching us at the time, and maybe when we turned to come back down the trail, it also turned to retreat back to where it had been from, or it was...
Did they move, or they were standing completely still?
Yes, when I saw the one that I had seen on the trail, it was standing still, and I got like a 3-second glance at it, and then as I turned to my rear to address my mother and turned back, it was gone by this time. So, okay. Yeah.
And she was looking at somewhere just past that or off from that to hers?
She would be looking to the right of the animal that I had seen, and maybe about 30 feet down in this little depression or ravine or what you want to call it. So yes, it was down and to the right of the animal that I sighted.
Okay.
So it was definitely a pair. And like I said before, if these animals wanted to do us harm or anything at that point, they would have had us easily. So, I don't really want to speculate on what they may be. I just know that it's an animal that I'd never seen anywhere or encountered anywhere.
Yeah. Did your mom ever say if she got a good, look at the face or anything like that on the one she spotted?
Well, the one that she says was standing up, so it was upright, and she said it was facing her, and she could perceive a face, but it was very, how do you say, really not detailed as it was, the face was shrouded in hair, but she could perceive protrusion of a nose and the eyes and
So
whatnot.
kind of that patty-ish feel, except for a little bit more lengthy hair, maybe.
And like I say, yes, the one that I saw looked like lengthy hair or thick hair, because I could not perceive any muscle tone or great detail, but definitely the large head, and the kind of the stumpy head, not a neck. There's not like a neck separating the head from the shoulders. It just kind of looked like the roundness of the back of the head into the shoulder, and then the arm extending down, and then the left side of the body. Not quite a
football or cone shape, more rounded, or kind of in between?
Yes, it was more rounded. Yeah, just, the shoulders straight into the head and then up and around, and not a cone shape. It was definitely more rounded. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And then the thing that's also interesting too, that I've also seen on, different reports or stories, a lot of those stories will relate the stench or that smell that these animals put off, and we had none of that. Both of us didn't experience any scent or anything coming from these animals. And like I say, I was 35, 40 yards away. But that's another story that doesn't kind of jive with my experience. I didn't get any sense of smell or anything from what I had seen.
The experience I had, I didn't really get to see it, but I mean, it was right there behind the tent. And even when I came out of the tent, I didn't smell anything. It wasn't really a smell that I remember. I don't, not really. So
interesting.
Yeah, I didn't have that either. Wow. So, what did your mom do after that? I mean, my mom, I know when we found the track, she looked at me, she looked at the track, she looked at the woods. She did that like 3 times, screamed, and took off with me behind. So,
well, yeah, I mean, we had both, obviously seen something at the same time, and that's what forced us to kind of take a beeline away from taking that trail.
Yeah.
And then up and over this little bluff onto a high field and back down to the residence. But the thing I do remember is when we got home, because I didn't know what to think at the time. I wasn't immediately thinking, I just saw Bigfoot. I know I had seen an animal that I'd never seen before, and just the kind of the fear of the unknown at that point. But the one comment that my mother did make is she said, "I think I just saw Bigfoot." And then that's when I talked to her about what I'd seen, and she was talking to me about what she had seen, and they were two separate animals at that point, because geographically, mine was up on the trail and hers was down 30 feet down in this little ravine.
But they were kind of similar in color, similar in...
Correct. Yeah, and I would perceive this thing at 30, 40 yards away, with the height of the trees and everything there on the trail, this thing would easily have to be 7.5 feet tall. It was definitely very,
are there
twice.
Like berries and stuff along that way? Is there something there? Maybe
I could never recall like
and stuff. Maybe they were heading up from the beach.
I wouldn't really be able to speculate on that. I know in that area there was plenty of blackberries and salmon berries and whatnot. But yeah, and then there's the whole bounty of whatever the coast has to offer there too as a food source. But yeah, it's just a lot of wild brush there and stuff, and other than berries and the animals that kind of are around the area, along with any animals that may be on the farm and whatnot, as a food source. But yeah, and it's like when we had the incident at the hen house there was no damage to the birds or the structure there, which was interesting also. I don't know if we may have interrupted them at that point. I wouldn't be able to speculate, but like I say, that over the years of living there, those were the instances that we had, and there was never any other instances of like our garbage being disturbed
or yourself, or any howling or screams in the night or anything else like that?
No, we never heard any howling, or I'd never actually seen any tracks that were in the ground and fresh, as aside from what the older gentleman had showed me with the castings that he had made. But yeah, so over the years of living there, those were the two instances that we had that stuck out in my mind. That
Wow.
definitely
That would definitely stick out in my mind, man. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I never got a visual the night of mine. But the incidents on my own incidents, man, had happened basically within about 3 or 4 miles of each other, 2, 3 miles, something like that, but over a period of 20 years difference.
Oh, wow.
Which was interesting. And the night that I didn't have a visual, but you knew it was bipedal, and it was whatever it was huge. And so it was just really interesting. I'm not an expert either. Like I said here, man, I do the encounter stories and stuff like that. I'm not really here to, debunk people's stories or anything. I leave that to the BFROs of the world and everything else. As far as I'm concerned, not being an expert, but, talking to experts like William Jevning and a few others, that kind of whitish, goldish color, especially when you got the ocean there, you've got a beautiful day, you've got greenery, you've got sandy colors, you've got sunlight, you've got, ocean reflection. Something that's maybe more gold color could reflect kind of a creamy white in a way. Because we do find out that having like white, Bigfoot are very rare, but it's not unheard of. I've seen a few pretty convincing encounters myself of more of a whitish colored, Bigfoot. So that's pretty interesting. It could also be that they're like a light gold, because there's lots of I know you're on a phone and I'm on a screen, so you probably can't see me. But there's probably there's lots of encounters out here of like a really light goldish, reddish brown, and blacks. Is what a lot of. So, could be something like that as well. But that's just awesome, man. That's pretty awesome. That Orick area, I used to drive through there. I told you I used to do insurance for a long time, and I would drive all that highway all the way down to Eureka and down to Orick and all the way down into what is that, Fort Bragg area?
I believe so. Yeah, that would be a little farther south down there.
It is, yeah. But I would drive through there to get to Fort Bragg and stuff like that, and come back up. And I have to tell you, Orick was it was such a, and I hate to use that term from those Finding Bigfoot crew, but it was pretty freaking squatchy, man. It's pretty thick forest. It's a lot like being up here in Oregon, man. Or down in the Redwoods. It's just really thick coastal rainforest stuff. I remember there's nothing but these small hills or small mountains, and it's just thick with heavy bush and trees, that coastal Douglas fir type of tree. So
yes, exactly. And that was kind of like the area that is here too. Like I said, it opened up into a lot of fields and farm type area, but
yes,
anywhere off those fields, I mean, you're from the field into heavy woods right away. So,
well, I remember when I'm driving through there, if anybody knows this, I mean, you're driving through Orick, you're basically, you got mountains, beach, valley.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right in the middle, there's this space of maybe 2 or 3 mile in width of nothing but kind of valley. But you just feel like you're in a sandwich of mountains and beach.
Yes, definitely.
It was insane. Yeah. So,
well, and I think might perpetuate, the activity there is the lack of human activity.
It's small,
very rural, and not a lot going on there. So,
what's the residency there? Something like 500, maybe.
Oh, I wouldn't know. I mean, I haven't been down that way in a very long time. But
let's see what Google has to say. Orick, California. Population 357 as of 2010.
Well, there you go.
So there we go. So there might be right around 400 to 500 people, around that area. And I have to tell you, so, and like you said, you were on the kind of the north side of Orick there. I know that there's a road up there like Skunk Cabbage or something like that. Is it kind of out around that area?
Yeah, it's just the north side of the river there in Orick, and then out to the coast.
Okay.
Like I said, the residence was probably, maybe a quarter mile off the beach.
Wow.
So very rural and not a lot of activity there. Like I say, the most activity that would be on that property have been, our family there, and then the landlord and his wife. And for a couple hundred acres, you're not going to have any other activity but those two parties. So very quiet.
I'm collecting. Yeah. So did he have anything else to say other than showing you the Bigfoot tracks? He'd say anything about them? Maybe they've been around.
No, he never mentioned or even uttered the word Sasquatch or Bigfoot or any stories or anything. It was just kind of like,
it's like, hey, look what I found.
Well, it was right after I related the story about something in the chicken coop, and I had said that there was a bear in there, and then he was kind of like, oh, come look at these. And, being a kid of that young age, I didn't put two and two together, or maybe he was trying to tell me, like, take a look at these, and this was what I
oh, wow.
am thinking that was in your chicken coop last night, sort of thing,
Okay.
So he was kind of giving me his opinion. Oh, this is what I perceive. Giving me his opinion of what may have been in the chicken coop without uttering a word. So, but like I say, at that point, I hadn't much exposure even to what Bigfoot may be or stories or anything that young as a kid. So I didn't really put those two incidents.
Are you doing any sort of like research on the side yourself? You just kind of poke around here and there today?
No, negative, not at all. Like I say, it's been years and years since I've even related this story to anybody, and right away I'm usually met with skepticism, even from friends or family that I tell this to, and usually the part of the story that usually throws it off for everybody is the fact that these animals were white. So everybody's like, oh yeah, right, Bigfoot are brown, and they see all these things that the media puts out there.
What you were seeing that day, like you said, was kind of a very dingy, off-whitish thing, like a really nasty yellowish polar bear. So,
yeah,
I mean, like I said, that kind of light down there can, near the ocean can reflect all kinds of different things. So, especially with something that's light colored. So, and is it completely unheard? No, it is not unheard of to have something, whitish. People speak of the Yeti being, white. Heck, I'm a redhead. So,
right.
There you go. You get me on the light though, and I'll tell you what, you can tell I'm 45. There's some gray in here. You just can't tell in the light. So that's how it might work, kind of that iridescent kind of coloring. So, I mean, who knows, So,
and then, like I say, I've never done any independent research or really any interest past the point that I know what I saw one day, and it's kind of part of my past, and always in my memory. And other than that, I've never really tried to research or do anything of those means or really had any interest past that. But like I say, the reason why I reached out and contacted you is that I was related the story about a sighting in Orick, California that was recent. And I was like, oh, wow, I saw one in Orick too. So when I researched it, I saw that there was multiple sightings in and around the Orick area, from the 90s up until now. And that's what kind of prompted me to get in touch with you and relate that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
There's yet another sighting in Orick. So
yeah, everybody around here, Pacwest Bigfoot, I'm sure we all appreciate that, man. That is just awesome. And thank you very much for being on here. Like I said, I like to keep these things as short as possible, so everybody can go about their day of living and working and doing what they're doing. But thanks, Chris, for being on here, man, and sharing your.
Sure, absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
I will be putting this on YouTube and everything, so pay attention there. And when people comment on there, if you want to comment back to them, I'm sure that they would love to conversate a little bit with you, asking some questions here and there in the comments. If you do, however, if you guys out there leave some comments and they're rude, they're full of 4-letter words, I will delete them. I don't like that stuff. Just be real. ask some honest questions of Chris, and whatnot. Let's try not to be, ding dongs out here. So, with that, I want to say thank you very much, Chris, for being on here, man. Hang on for just a minute, because on here, and I'm going to stop the recording in just a second, just chat with you for one more minute. But thank you guys for being on with Pacwest Bigfoot. This is David, and God bless you guys. I will talk to you and share some more with you soon. All right, God bless. Bigfoot for now will just be a place where you guys can go. You can go if you haven't already. You can sign up for the free monthly giveaway where I give away something cool. And by the way, Derek and your wife, I just started feeling better. I had a really bad cold for a few days, plus the sites were down. I was trying to work on that, so I didn't get this in the mail yet. But you guys, Derek and his wife, you guys got it. I'm going to send this out here in the next 24 hours. So there you are. Any other news? Not really. Other than that, it was a hectic weekend. I was sick. My wife is sick. If you hear anything in the background, we homeschool. I work at home. So there we are. Anyways, this week, what I wanted to do is I had a gentleman named Chris contact me, and we just hit it off really well. And we started kind of talking about Bigfoot. We both had our kind of experiences, but his experience was just so awesome. So what I wanted to do was get his encounter story out here to you guys. And it was just so interesting. I was like, that's that is just cool, especially when I have a really awesome little secondhand report that I got from some people around the same area in Orick, California. So what I want to do right now is introduce Chris, and his encounter story happened, I believe, up around the Northern California. Am I correct, around Orick there, Chris?
That would be correct, yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to kick back, and I'm going to be really quiet, man, and I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us. I know that you've had more than one experience that kind of led up to all of this. So if you want to, we're all going to be real quiet, and we're just going to listen to you, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
Yeah, so what prompted me to actually contact you, I'm really not, I'm kind of a novice when it comes to the subject, and kind of, the press, side.
On computer. So I believe we are recording right now. So welcome to Pacwest Bigfoot. This is David. And before I introduce our guest today, what I wanted to say real quick is thank you guys so very much for all your help and all your patience with Pacwest Bigfoot as I'm kind of growing here. I have moved the blog and everything over to the Pacwest Facebook page. You go there, you can click on where it says notes right underneath my old ugly image there of my old butt face. And guess what? You click on notes, you're going to find all the content there, all the blog posts and everything else. So we'll be over there. Pacwest
of the things and everything that's out there with TV shows and everything else like that. I wouldn't call myself a fan or anything such, but I did have an experience, and what actually prompted me to contact you was I was alerted to the recent story of the incidents up and around Orick.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to Google the story, one night reading, I found and saw that there had been a lot of instances of sightings and activity in Orick over the years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wanted to contact you and just kind of relate my experience in the area.